thank you for joining. And it's good to see all of you, too, who are here in front of us in the room. It's really wonderful to be starting another Rosh Hashanah together. Totally unpredictable, as has been more or less that has been more or less the theme of my time here at CAA. But I'm very happy that collectively we figure out the way to make the most of it. And it does feel really nice and special and welcoming and comforting to be back up here. To be back up here together on a familiar holiday, if not quite yet back to the familiar feeling of, we're still dealing with the Mass, we're still having people here and people there, but we're going to make the most of it. And of course, welcome back to Alex Seidman, who is here once again to fill in, to do a much better job of the things that I need filling in on, which is, of course, sharing his beautiful voice with us. But before I turn it over to him, I want to get us started with a short reading and then candle lighting, and then we'll begin the Mariv service together. So this is called, aptly enough, it's a poem by William Stafford. It's called, appropriately enough, You Reading This, Be Ready. Or in this case, you all listening to this, be ready. Starting here, what do you want to remember? How sunlight creeps along a shining floor? What scent of old wood hovers? What softened sound from outside fills the air? Will you ever bring a better gift for the world than the breathing respect that you carry wherever you go right now? Are you waiting for time to show you some better thoughts? When you turn around, starting here, lift this new glimpse that you found. Carry into evening all that you want from this day. This interval you spent reading or hearing this, keep it for life. What can anyone give you greater than now, starting here, right in this room, when you turn around? And if there's anyone at home who has candles ready to go, feel free to light along with me. Otherwise, those of you in the room, you're just going to have to make the most of these two little tea lights that I have up here on the bima with me. Wants to bring that peace and that light and our first official start to this holiday inward. Let's take a moment. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel yom tov. Amen. Good. Yantif, everyone. Chag Sameach, Shana Tova. And I will ask you to rise. And we will turn to page 5, I believe, in the Machzorim. Page 5, and we will begin with Baruch Hu. And Alex is just going to go get his tallis, and then we will begin on page 5 with Baruch Hu. We all have to collectively shake off the rust for a moment. All right, and one more time, page 5.
Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed.
You may be seated. We continue silently on page 5.
Umavhir yom umevihi laila umavdil ben yom uven laila Adonai Tzivaot Shemo Ehel Chai Vekayam Tamid Yimloch Aleinu Leolam Vaed Baruch Atah Adonai Ha'ma'ariv Aharavihim.
Amen. And on the top of page 6, on the left-hand side, let's read together in English. You have loved your people, the house of Israel, with infinite love. You taught us Torah and mitzvot, statutes and laws. Therefore, Adonai our God, as we lie down or rise up, we shall think of your laws and speak of them, rejoicing in your words of Torah and your mitzvot forever and ever. For they are our life and the fullness of our days, and on them we will meditate day and night. May you never withdraw your love from us. Baruch Atah Adonai, who loves the people Israel.
Ki hem chayeinu ve'orech yameinu uvahem nege yomaham v'halayla ve'ahavatcha al tasir mimenu leolamim Baruch Atah Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Amen. And in the middle of page 6, we'll say the Shema together.
Shema Yisrael
נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו טוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. And we'll continue silently with the first paragraph on the top of page 7 and come back together for the second paragraph on page 7. Middle of page 7. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor daber el bnei Yisrael v'amarta alehem v'asu lahem tzitzit al kanfei vigdehem l'dorotam v'natnu al tzitzit hakanaf v'til techelet v'yalachem Letzitzit uritem oto, usfartem et kol mitzvot Adonai vasitem otam, velo taturu acharei levavchem v'acharei einechem, asher atem zonim achreihem, leman tizkeru vasitem et kol mitzvotai, v'item kedoshim lelohechem, Ani Adonai Elohechem, Asher hotziתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
Adonai Elohechem emet.
And we continue in the middle of page 8, where you see the little red arrow about halfway down the page.
Umalchuto beratzon kiblu aleihem Moshe uMiriam uvnei Yisrael lechanu shira esimcha Yada Adonai et Yaakov Ugealo miyad chazak mimenu Baruch atah Adonai
Amen. And on page 9, we continue silently. Top of page 9.
Ushmor tzeiteinu vo'enu lechayim u'shalom me'ata v'yad olam ufros aleinu sukat shilomecha Baruch atah Adonai apore sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim.
And on page 10, we rise, top of page 10, for our first hint of Kiddush for the day.
Tiku v'chodesh shofar b'kesel yom chageinu ki chok l'Yisrael hu mishpat Elohei Yaakov.
Sound the shofar on our feast day, on the new moon, when it is hidden, for it is Israel's law, a decree of the God of Jacob. And we continue on page 10 with the Chatzi Kaddish.
Yitkadal ve'itkadash Shemei Rahaba ve'alma divera kirutei ve'amlich malchutei b'chayechon u'b'yomechon u'b'chayei dechol beit Yisrael v'agala u'vizman kariv ve'imeru amen yehesh me'raba mevorach ve'olam ulol me'al mahaya yitbarach Yitbarach ve'yishtabach ve'yitpoar ve'yitromam ve'yitnasei ve'yitadar ve'yitale v'yitalal shemei dekudesha erichu ve'ela le'ela mikol birchata ve'shirata tush
will continue with the silent Amidah on page 11. It goes through page 17, taking just a couple minutes for silent prayer, reflection, and meditation. And we'll come back together with Oseh Shalom in just a little bit.
Oseh Shalom Bimromav Uya Aseh Shalom Aleichem Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'imeru, amen.
You can take a seat for a couple minutes. You all can take a seat for a couple minutes. Alex, it's good to have you back up here. Got a nice feeling of familiarity. Shana Tova, everyone. It's good to see you all. It's good to be together. And this is a short service, but I do want to take the opportunity to give a short Dvar Torah. This will be the shortest words you'll hear from me, I think, this week. So won't keep you from dinner too long. I want to talk about the Kaddish a little bit. The Kaddish occupies a very unique place in our liturgy. I think it's the prayer we say the most often. Just tonight, we'll say the Kaddish 3 different times in 3 slightly different forms. We'll say the half, the full, and the mourner's Kaddish. And it is a prayer that brings us together. It's one of the few prayers we can only say in the presence of a minyan of 10. Yet, in my experience, it's one of the prayers whose meaning we think least about. It's generally said by the leader, sometimes said by mourners. It's generally not said collectively. We know it so well that our responses are pretty automatic, and the prayer is written in Aramaic, which never helps any of us, even those of us fluent in Hebrew. Admittedly, the Kaddish is prime territory for a mid-service zone-out. So I wouldn't blame you if you didn't notice that the Chatzi Kaddish that Alex said before we started our silent Amidah was a little bit different this evening. Alex added an extra word. Actually, he repeated the word le'ela. And please don't get the wrong idea. This was not a slip on his part. We all know better than to assume that. But this is an addition for Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and the 8 days in between, where that particular line of the Kaddish transforms from God who is blessed is truly beyond all acknowledgement and praise to become God who is blessed is truly far beyond all acknowledgement and praise. Which is to say, it really doesn't change the prayer very much. Essentially, we are sneaking in a little extra flattery and sweet talk towards God in this season of supplication. But because of this addition of one extra word, there's a second, even smaller adjustment to the Kaddish. The next words of the phrase, min kol, meaning all, becomes mikol, a contraction of the 2 words that doesn't change their meaning at all. And before I risk losing anyone to the fine points of Hebrew or English grammar, this is the equivalent of changing is not to isn't. But there is no substantive difference between min kol and mikol. So what exactly gives? To answer that question, we need to move from grammar to math. In this section of the Kaddish, starting with Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevorach, that's the regular tune, not the high holiday tune, until the end, there are exactly 28 words. This corresponds with the 28 human experiences listed in the famous section in Ecclesiastes, Kohelet, attributed to King Solomon. To everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die. I imagine most of you know the rest. Turn, turn, turn by the birds made it even more famous than King Solomon did. Now, some of you may be thinking at this point that this sounds like some creative word counting and at most a nice coincidence, which as far as I'm concerned is fine.
We draw plenty of meaning in our lives from coincidence. And I think that there are two very important messages for us in this connection between the Kiddush and Ecclesiastes. The first is that change does not happen in a vacuum. If we want to add something to our lives, we will likely need to take something else away, and vice versa. Let's take the favorite rabbinic repentance example of Lashon Hara, evil or destructive speech. If you want to set a goal for yourself this year of restraining from harmful speech, for example, withholding from gossiping or spreading rumors, that's great. The rabbis would give you a big round of applause. I would give you a big round of applause. However, without a positive plan of action, refraining from any harmful patterns you've established won't be easy. You may need to work to fill that hole in your mind, to fill that hole in your social interactions with something equally meaningful, perhaps a mindfulness practice or an effort to offer more compliments. You can't subtract without adding somewhere else. And as we set our minds on what we might want to change in the year ahead, what we may want to add or subtract, or add and subtract, we need to remember that number 28, that the passage from Ecclesiastes encompasses the entirety of our human experience. We come together on these days of awe to engage in honest and open self-reflection and self-evaluation. That needs to reflect every facet of our lives, the good, the bad, and the ugly, or in the slightly modified words of King Solomon, the times to weep, the times to laugh, the times to mourn, and the times to dance. The Kiddush, this communal prayer that we include in every service multiple times, may be just the ticket to keep us grounded in that fullness of our human experience, the highs and lows of the year just past, and the hopes and anxieties of the year about to begin. In just a moment, we'll turn to page 19 and continue with the full Kiddush, appropriately enough. Feel free to follow along, to space out for a moment, to count to 28, or to take the moments of the Kiddush as an unexpected opportunity to appreciate the fullness of your own life. And we'll continue on page 19 with the full Kiddush. As is our confusing system, I invite you to stand or sit, however you're comfortable.
Yitkadal ve'yitkada shemei rabba.
Amen.
Ve'alma divrach kirutei ve'amlich malchutei ve'chayechon uvyomechon uvechaye dechol beit Yisrael ba'hagahala uvizman kori ve'imeru. Amen.
Amen.
Yehi shmei rabba mevorach leolam lo me'omahaya deram bararam bararam bam bam yitbarach ve'yishtabach v'par ve'yitromam ve'yitnaseh ve'yithadar v'yitale ve'yitalal shemei dekudsha
Brichu.
Leila lehiela min kol birchata ve'shirata tushbechata ve'nechemata damiran me'alma v'imru.
Amen.
Titkabel tilahoton uvaha'u donecho Yisrael kadam avuho hondi vishmahaya Ve'imeru Amen.
Amen.
Yehi Shlama Rabba min Shemahaya V'chayim Aleinu V'yahal Kol Yisrael Ve'imeru Amen.
Amen.
Ose Shalom Bihim Rohomav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael Ve'imeru Amen.
Amen. I invite you to turn to page 24. I'm going to bump you out of the way one more time, Ides. And in just a moment, I'll ask everyone to rise together for Kiddush. There's not necessarily a great reason to include Kiddush in the shul services. It's something that, deep in my heart of hearts, I hope everyone is running home to do at their own Yontif table as soon as they get home from here. But something that goes hand in hand with the Kiddush is saying the Shechianu at the end of Kiddush. And Shechianu, famously, and I think familiarly for most of us, is the blessing that we say over new things, over things that we're doing for the first time in a long time, the things that we're doing for the first time in a year. And I've just been reflecting a lot about, this is our third year up here together, and for many reasons, each year has felt drastically different. But I think my hope for me and my hope for Alex alongside me, and really my hope for all of you who, continue to show up for Rosh Hashanah services year after year, whether you're tuning in on Zoom or whether you're here in the room with us, is that every year it should be a completely new experience. And not just because some years we need to wear masks and some years we don't, but hopefully as the cycle renews itself every year, we're really finding something brand new and exciting to be coming back to. So for the sake of Shechianu more than anything else, we're going to say Kiddush, which is on page 24. And at the end, I'll give you a little, hand signal or something, and I'll invite you to join me in the Shechianu. Top of page 24. Savri Ravatai, Baruch Atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Borei peri hagafen. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher bachar banu mikol am, v'romanu mikol lashon, v'kiddeshanu b'mitzvotav, v'titen lanu Adonai Eloheinu ba'ava, et yom hazikaron hazeh, Yom Tshua Mikra Kodesh, Zecher L'tziat Mitzrayim, Ki vanu v'charta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim, Utvarcha emet v'kayam la'ad, Baruch atah Adonai, Melech al kol ha'aretz, Mekadesh Yisrael, Melech al kol ha'aretz, Mekadesh Yisrael. Melech al kol haaretz, Mekadesh Yisrael, v'yom hazikaron. And on the bottom of 24 altogether, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Baruch atah Adonai, our God, ruler of time and space, for granting us life, for sustaining us, and for bringing us to this moment. And we remain standing and turn to page 25 for the Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, lahatei gedula liotzer reishit, shelo asanu kigoyei ha'aratzot, velo samanu emishpechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'gohor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, b'fnei melech malchei hamlach, בשמיים ויוסד הארץ. ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגבהי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד.
And the second paragraph on page 25, we say silently.
ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
And before we turn to Mourner's Kaddish, we're actually going to, you may be seated, we're going to turn to page 27, 7 lines down in the bold for Achat Sha'alti.
אחת שאלתי מאת אדוני אותה אבקש. אחת שאלתי מאת אדוני אותה אבקש. שבתי בבית אדוני כל ימי חיי, לחצות בנועם אדוני, ולבקר בהיכלו. לחצות בנועם אדוני, ולבקר בהיכלו.
And now we'll turn together to page 26 for the Mourner's Kaddish. Please feel free to join me. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, ve'alma divrach yirutei, ve'amlich malchutei, v'chayechon u'vyomechon u'v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'mei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha brichu. Le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata damiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlam haraba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
You may be seated. Once again, Shana Tova, everyone. Thank you all for coming out on this beautiful Labor Day weekend evening to start Rosh Hashanah off together right. Yasher Koach, of course, to Alex Eidman, and welcome back to Newburyport. I'm sure we're all glad to see you, no one more so than me. And also, of course, thank you to Bonnie and Leah for keeping an eye on the AV, and Robert and Ed for keeping an eye on the front door. I'm not going to go too long with announcements, just a reminder of the schedule for the next couple days. Both tomorrow and Wednesday, we'll be back at 9 a.m., same Zoom link for all those services. Tomorrow we'll be doing Shacharit through the Torah service and Shofar and sermon, and then Wednesday we'll be doing Torah service, Shofar, sermon, Musaf. So we're splitting the service up into 2 days. Tashlich tomorrow will take place immediately when services end. Even if you're not in the building, feel free to come down to Cashman Park and meet us for Tashlich. And then on Wednesday, for anyone who wants to bring the family or kids are in school or you're working, we'll be doing it again at 5:30 at Cashman Park. I will have more announcements tomorrow, but today I really just wanted to keep it to the schedule. And I will turn it back over to Alex to finish us out with Yigdal in a more upbeat tune than the traditional High Holidays tune. That was a joint decision on page 28.
Yigdal Elohim Chai ve'yishtabach Nimtzav Yenei tel metziuto Echad v'yein yachid keyichudo Me'elam v'gam ein sof le'achduto Ein lo demut haguf ve'eino guf Lo na'aroch elav kedushato Admon l'chol davar asher nivra Rishon v'yein reshit l'reshito Hino Adon olam v'chol notzar Yoreh gedulato malchuto Shefan nevuato netano El anshe segulato v'tifarto Lo kam beYisrael kemo she'od Navi umabit et tmunato Torat emet natan le'amoel Al yad nevi'io neman beito Lo yachal Yifa'el ve'lo yamir dato Le'olamim zulato Tzofeh v'yodea setareinu Mabit l'sof davar v'kadmato Gomel ish chesed kemifalo Noten l'rashara kerishato Yishlach l'ketzayim meshichenu Liftot mechake ketz Yeshuato Meitim Yechayel Berov Chasto Baruch Adei Ad Shem Tehilato Meitim Yechayel Berov Chasto Baruch Adei Ad Shem Tehilato
Yasher Koach, Alex, Shana Tova, everyone.
Goya, Alex,
Folks
Goya,
in
double
the
Alex.
You can unmute and wish each other a Shana Tova now as well, if you'd like. Shana Tova, everyone.
Shana Tova.
Goya,
Gallery.
Shana Tova.
Tova, Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
It's just kind of, the more I pull it, the more I stretch it, the more.
Shana Tova, everybody.
Lashan Tova.
Look forward to the Alexes.
He doesn't have the best smell. He just has
See you tomorrow.
Night. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Bye. Bye.
Good, sweet, healthy, happy, peaceful New Year.
Yes.
portion.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Tomorrow.
I gotta see everybody tomorrow.
The rest of it, but I think this is still good. I'm gonna hang on to this one, put it back in the bag. What should we try out?
Happy New Year. Happy New Year, Jim and Nancy.
Happy New Year, Wendy.
Lashana Tova.
Shana Tova. See you tomorrow.
You bet.
Let's see. Oh, here we go.